Hello, Tere, in Tallinn. Today is a rainy day outside our windows, we may say. And we are starting with our official selection, main competition. 23 films you're about to see and discover, and we will witness what we have done over this year. And we have symbolic opening. Of course, our opening film was My Neighbor Adolf, but official competition is starting with Stiekyt, South African film, which is quite rarity to find. If you remember our programming in 2019, we had in competition Fearless Child, and now South Africa, sunny South Africa, is back with very unusual film, very colorful and mixture of genres. And Etienne Fourie is our first guest, and I say welcome to Tallinn.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And I'm very curious, this is your fourth feature film, and basically second film which you are showing abroad, outside South Africa. How would you introduce Stiekyt to international audience?
To be honest with you, that's difficult for me. And that was sort of the point as well of this film. You know, I wanted to do something that was unconventional as is possible where I'm from. So I would say this film is really, for me, it's a relationship drama between a man and a wife, husband and wife. And they have to sort of fight for their relationship under very strange and odd circumstances. And the film, like from a filmmaking standpoint, the point was to make it quite odd and sort of, just unconventional, I suppose. So it's very difficult to explain it, and that's what I like about it.
When I was firstly watching a film in June, first thing came to my mind was this is Hitchcock mixed with Almodovar in South African drug bar.
That's awesome. I love that. I use that quote as well. Thank you.
And you of course, you wrote the film by yourself. Yeah. And how long did it take to you to write Stiekyt?
So the thing about Stiekyt, right, because it is so unconventional, the money obviously is quite a bit less than it normally is for the more commercial stuff that I normally do, right? So I ended up having about 3 weeks to write the script, which is okay. I'm quite glad about that as well, because there wasn't any chance for me to second guess anything. I just had to go and just finish it, you know. So that was sort of quite therapeutic in a way as well. So it was about 3 weeks to write the script, yeah.
And you intentionally wanted to mix different genres because it's a drag movie, LGBT, then it's a crime thriller, detective investigation, but also you don't forget about comedy, and it's actually very funny.
Awesome, thank you. I like to sort of blend genres, although to be perfectly honest with you, I don't do that on purpose. It's not something I set out to do. When I'm writing, I write novels as well. That's sort of what I do most of the time now. I just sort of go where the story takes me, you know. So whatever I think would be cool to happen next, that's sort of what happens, right? So I don't think too much about genre. It's usually something that comes after the film has been made or the book has been written or whatever. Then we have to, when it comes to publicity and marketing and that kind of stuff, we have to start figuring out, you know, where do we put this thing? So yeah, I just sort of go where the story takes me, where the characters take me. Yeah.
And let me also one of the most difficult questions to ask. Before coming here, I was in Aras Film Festival, and I heard Romanian filmmaker, and he read even statistics. But in Romania, a film on LGBT theme would be despised, criticized by 70% of Romanian nation. It was like a strike to me, very, very, very painful to hear these numbers. May I ask how South African spectators and nation reacts to LGBT films?
That's a very good question. I mean, so South Africa has 11 official languages, and every one of those languages has quite a unique culture as well, right? So we're sort of a melting pot of different cultures. So I can speak for the culture that I'm from. That's quite a religious and conservative culture, generally speaking. I live in Cape Town, so that's not as conservative, right? Which is one of the reasons why I love Cape Town so much. So you will always have pushback from certain people. But for me, it's so important to. I don't like to label the film as an LGBTQ film, right? Because for me, some of the characters just happen to be LGBTQ characters, and I think for me, I'm part of the LGBTQ community, right? So my partner and I, we talk about this a lot. I think he's also a writer, so I think one of the most important things for us to do to create awareness for LGBTQ people is to create characters that just happen to be in that community, right? That's not their defining factor. So, for example, in one of my previous films, we had an interracial couple. And that's also something that's quite controversial where I'm from. Race is a big deal in South Africa. Sorry. And in the film, we never actually mention that. None of the characters mention the fact that these two characters happen to be from different races, and I think that's sort of the way to combat some of that ignorance in a way, is to show that LGBTQ people are just, for lack of a better term, just normal people, So yes, there will be pushback, but I quite welcome that, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, but what is good about Stiekyt? And how we must pronounce correctly?
Stiekyt.
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 Oh, this is.
Yeah.
And do you have any explanation? What is it?
Yeah.
Is it what meaning this
So
word has?
it's not technically a word in Afrikaans either, but it's a word that. So we have it's an LGBTQ word a little bit, and then we have a group of people, and this might sound. Like a bad word to international people, right? Because the word colored is normally, it's not a word we use, but these people are Cape colored people, right? And they are the most beautiful, incredible people, and they use that word. So Stiekyt has been sort of taken on from like the LGBTQ community and that community where they meet. You have some of the coolest people I know, and there's this one actor, Rian Visman, and he's the most colorful person you've ever seen, and he's loud and beautiful, and he always goes Stiekyt. So that just basically means like, be cool, man. Like, just show up, be fabulous, be incredible. So I quite like the sort of the meeting point of those two cultures. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, when we talk about South Africa, cinema actors, Charlize Theron comes to mind,
yes.
of course. So when I was growing up, of course, Arnold Vosloo was my hero, personal hero. He made a very difficult life for Jean-Claude Van Damme. Hard target, and when he was big star, fortunately he's coming back to South African films. I keep seeing him. But Stiekyt introduces us to a gang of new actors whom we never saw before.
Yeah.
Maybe you could introduce briefly your actors. Your main actor has big experience in theater and TV, but it's basically also first time when he will be recognized by international audiences.
Yeah, I mean, Paul du Toit, so he's the protagonist, is an incredible actor and director as well. So one thing we do have is we have quite a thriving Afrikaans theatre community, especially in Cape Town and surroundings. So these people happen to be sort of my friends, right? So I kind of know these people because my partner is a playwright as well. So I've sort of come to know a lot of these people, and they are such incredible actors. And because predominantly in South Africa, the stuff that's made is quite conservative, that these actors tend not to want to do that, right? Because they want sort of interesting stuff to do. So the moment that they get to do something that has a little bit of meat on the bones, they're quite excited to do that. And I'm so fortunate to have been able to work with them. A lot of them, well, actually almost all of them are quite legendary in South Africa, right? So especially in theatre. So Ilse Roos, for example, who plays the madam of the club, she's an absolute legend. And then we have Albert Pretorius, who plays Pandora, the big loud queen. He's one of my best friends, happens to be one of my best friends as well. And we have Wessel Pretorius, who's the really bitchy queen. I love her, and she's loud and crazy. And then so I have to tell you the story, okay? So we needed, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this here, but we needed a man to be naked on screen for one of the scenes. And I had an actor in mind, and he was going to do it. And then at the last minute, he sort of didn't want to do it anymore. So I got my friend, Franny, who has red hair, to do it for us. And he's not really an actor. He's an actor now, but he wasn't then. But I knew that he would be willing to do it. So we created this character for him, so he's also in the film. So I'm very excited about that.
And for some of actors, this is probably first time they are acting in front of camera.
No, most of them have acted before. One of them, I think Roberto Cal might have done a film before, but he does mostly television. So a lot of television happens in South Africa, and film not so much. But they're all very experienced in theatre, especially. Yeah.
And you allowed them to improvise on set, or everything was choreographed?
Pretty much choreographed, really, just because of time. We only had about 2 weeks to film, which is very little. We used to about 5 or 6 weeks, right? And it was during our first wave of COVID lockdown as well. So it had to be so controlled, and we had so little time. So there was very little time for us to actually play around, And I'm sorry about that. I wish we could have done more. There were some aspects of improvisation, but not much.
So, Etienne, thank you for visiting us in this new booth with our Wolf and PÖFF, and all the best luck to open official competition of Black Nights. And tomorrow in the evening at 6:30, we will check how Estonian international audiences react to Stiekyt, and we can only wish to everyone, be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Be fabulous. Thanks so much.
And see you tomorrow. Woohoo!